Johnny Depp has finally admitted the truth about what really ended his marriage to Amber Heard. For years, people assumed it was simply about the explosive allegations and courtroom battles, but what he's revealed since the 2022 trial tells a much deeper, more devastating story. The world watched as their marriage imploded in May 2016. Just 72 hours after Amber filed for divorce, photographs emerged that would spark a 6-year legal war spanning 2 continents. But here's what nobody talks about. Between February 2015, when they married, and May 2016, when she filed, Johnny Depp went from one of Hollywood's most bankable stars to someone whose career was systematically dismantled. What Johnny Depp has shown us since that Virginia courtroom verdict isn't just about winning a defamation case. It's a carefully orchestrated response that reveals the true depth of what he lost during those relationship years. And when you understand what really happened behind closed doors, you'll realize that the public scandal was just the tip of the iceberg. The truth Johnny Depp has been telling us through his $200 million-plus career resurrection, his return to European stages before 60,000 fans, and his choice to retreat from Hollywood entirely is far more devastating than anyone imagined. This isn't just about one toxic relationship. This is about a man who spent decades building an identity as cinema's ultimate outsider artist, only to watch that identity erased while he spiraled into addiction. At 62, Johnny Depp has finally shown us through his complete exile from Hollywood exactly why he had to end that marriage, because staying meant losing himself forever. To understand why Johnny Depp's transformation is so shocking, we need to go back to where it all started, because his path to Amber Heard was paved with decades of genuine artistry, which makes what happened even more heartbreaking. Picture this: 1984, Los Angeles. A 21-year-old high school dropout from Kentucky arrives with a beat-up guitar and dreams of making it with his band, The Kids. Johnny Depp wasn't supposed to become an actor. He was a musician who took an audition to pay rent. He made $1,200 for A Nightmare on Elm Street. Within 2 years, he was earning $45,000 per episode on 21 Jump Street, a teen heartthrob he actively resented. What made Johnny Depp different was his obsessive commitment to characters nobody else would touch. In 1990, he chose Tim Burton's Edward Scissorhands over conventional leading man roles, a gothic fairy tale about an outsider who couldn't touch the world without destroying it. The studio thought he was insane. The film became a phenomenon. Through the 90s and 2000s, Johnny Depp built something rare in Hollywood: artistic credibility combined with massive commercial success. His longtime partnership with Vanessa Paradis from 1998 to 2012 gave him stability. They had 2 children, Lily Rose and Jack. For 14 years, he maintained balance, filming Pirates of the Caribbean and earning $300 million from that franchise while still making small, strange films that meant something to him. He collected art, played guitar in bars, and bought his mother a horse farm in Kentucky. Johnny Depp wasn't just wealthy, he was one of the last true movie stars who refused to sell out. He turned down Batman because he thought it was too mainstream. But fame and fortune have a way of attracting people who see opportunity rather than art. And as his 14-year relationship with Vanessa Paradis began crumbling in 2011 and 2012, something fundamental began shifting in the kind of person Johnny Depp was allowing into his world. By 2013, Johnny Depp was entering his 50s, dealing with the loss of stability and making choices friends would later describe as concerning. He'd met Amber Heard on The Rum Diary in 2009, but their relationship didn't begin publicly until 2012, right as his life with Vanessa was dissolving. The isolation started first. Then the drinking intensified. Then the pattern of surrounding himself with enablers. According to trial testimony, his struggles with substance issues escalated dramatically during the Amber Heard years. His business managers revealed that his spending had spiraled to $2 million per month, including $30,000 on wine alone. Meanwhile, the world saw something different. They saw Johnny Depp marrying Amber Heard in February 2015. They saw red carpet appearances where he looked happy with a woman 23 years younger. They saw him continuing to command $20 million per film. But friends began noticing something was off. There were fewer easy laughs, fewer spontaneous moments, fewer glimpses of the real Johnny. What nobody understood then, what wouldn't become clear until years later in a Virginia courtroom, was that behind the glamorous appearances, Johnny Depp was losing himself in a cycle of intoxication, explosive arguments, and desperate attempts to escape. The man who once turned down Batman was now so deep in substance abuse that he was texting friends about wanting to burn and drown things. His own words, read aloud in court, would reveal someone spiraling into darkness. The relationship with Amber Heard became the concentrated symbol of everything Johnny Depp had spent 30 years avoiding: volatile, public, destructive, documented, and it was consuming him entirely. Then came May 2016. On May 21, Amber Heard filed for divorce after 15 months of marriage. That's just 474 days. But here's where the story gets interesting. On May 27, exactly 6 days after filing, Amber appeared at a Los Angeles courthouse seeking a restraining order. With a visible mark on her face she claimed was from recent abuse. Within 48 hours, Johnny Depp went from beloved Hollywood eccentric to accused domestic abuser. But the timeline raises questions. Los Angeles police had responded to their penthouse on May 21. Officers testified they saw no injuries, no signs of a crime. Yet 6 days later, the bruise appeared prominently for cameras. According to trial evidence, the relationship had been volatile on both sides. Text messages revealed Johnny writing horrifying things about Amber to friends. Audio recordings captured Amber admitting to hitting Johnny, mocking him, and telling him, "Tell the world, Johnny. Tell them I, Johnny Depp, a man, I'm a victim too of domestic violence, and see how many people believe you." But here's what's truly shocking. Johnny Depp had no history of abuse allegations across 50-plus years and multiple long-term relationships. Women like Kate Moss and Vanessa Paradis defended him publicly. How did a 15-month marriage generate 6 years of legal warfare, consuming tens of millions in legal fees? By August 2016, just 3 months after filing, they reached a settlement. Johnny paid Amber $7 million, which she pledged to donate to charity. The restraining order was dropped. Both signed non-disparagement agreements. It should have ended there, but it didn't. Johnny Depp handled the explosion with remarkable restraint. He didn't give interviews. He didn't release evidence. He didn't trash Amber publicly. He simply endured, staying silent through years of career annihilation while the world watched his reputation explode. When the divorce finalized in January 2017, Johnny paid the $7 million. But what he did next revealed everything about what he'd been experiencing. By November 2018, Johnny sat for a GQ interview where he openly discussed his substance abuse and relationship failures. This wasn't spin saying. This was a 55-year-old man acknowledging what he'd become. Then in December 2018, when Amber published an op-ed in the Washington Post identifying herself as a public figure representing domestic abuse, never naming Johnny but making the connection obvious, he made a decision. He sued her for $50 million in defamation. This wasn't about money. Johnny was broke by his own admission. This was about something else entirely. Do you see what he was really saying? Through his actions, Johnny was revealing that he understood what it felt like to be publicly destroyed by a narrative he couldn't control. The lawsuit wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. At 55 years old, he was saying, "I would rather be broke and vindicated than wealthy and silent." The case wouldn't go to trial for 4 years. During that time, Johnny vanished from Hollywood. He lost Fantastic Beasts in 2020. He lost the UK libel case that same year. He was, by every measure, finished in American cinema. By 2020, he'd sold his Los Angeles penthouses. By 2021, he was living primarily in the UK, touring with Jeff Beck, playing guitar in small venues, returning to his musician identity before acting ever happened. He was systematically dismantling the Hollywood version of Johnny Depp piece by piece. By 2024, at 62 years old, Johnny has rebuilt a career worth $150–200 million annually through European films, Dior Sauvage deals, and music. But the pattern of his actions since that June 2022 verdict reveals what he really experienced. His focus on working outside Hollywood entirely suggests someone who understands exile. Since the trial, he's filmed Jean du Barry, premiering at Cannes 2023 to a 7-minute standing ovation. He's filming Modi, directing from Europe. He recorded with Jeff Beck until Beck's death. Notice what's missing? 0 American studio films. 0 attempts to reclaim Hollywood. His approach is telling. Johnny isn't doing press tours begging for forgiveness. He showed up at Cannes, cried during the ovation, and said almost nothing about the trial. He performs for 60,000 people and doesn't discuss his ex-wife. This suggests someone who won in court, proved his version to a jury, and now simply wants to create art without needing Hollywood's validation. Meanwhile, Amber appeared in Aquaman 2 with a reduced role. She's given multiple interviews about feeling silenced despite the jury verdict. She hasn't paid the judgment. It was settled confidentially for less in December 2022. The contrast reveals everything. One chose silence, work, and exile. The other chose continued narrative control. One returned to his artist roots in Europe, The other fought to maintain Hollywood presence despite the verdict. The pattern is clear. Johnny at 62 isn't trying to return to what he was. He's building something new from the pieces of who he was before Hollywood knew his name. A musician, an artist living in Europe, making films for people who still see him as exactly that. So what is the real reason Johnny Depp finally admits through his actions at 62 that he had to divorce Amber Heard? Through his choices, he has painted a picture of someone who discovered that staying in that marriage meant losing himself completely. The trial wasn't just about defamation, it was final confirmation of what had been happening for years. The relationship had slowly eroded his judgment, his sobriety, his sense of self, until he became someone capable of writing those horrifying texts, someone passing out in ice cream, someone needing detox countless times. Think about it this way. Johnny had built 30 years on choosing art over commerce. He'd walked away from Batman multiple times. He'd protected his privacy so fiercely most people didn't know he had children. He'd maintained a 14-year relationship with Vanessa that was stable and loving. But somewhere in his 50s, he lost every instinct that had protected him for 3 decades. The relationship with Amber became the concentrated symbol of that loss. Volatile, public, destructive, everything he'd spent 30 years avoiding. The trial revealed 2 people bringing out the absolute worst in each other. The jury determined Amber had defamed Johnny by writing that op-ed without sufficient evidence. They awarded him $10.35 million. Johnny's career resurrection at 62 reveals someone who intimately understands being defined by worst moments. His focus on working outside Hollywood isn't just strategy, it's survival. He's saying through his choices, I had to leave that marriage because staying meant accepting those worst moments were who I really was, and I refused to accept that. By choosing England, selling every LA property, returning to music before film, Johnny at 62 has declared independence, not just from Amber, but from the entire identity built around being a Hollywood leading man. He was becoming who he was meant to be before he disappeared into addiction and a marriage that nearly destroyed him. At 62, he finally admits through every choice since June 2022, he divorced Amber Heard because staying married meant staying the worst version of himself, and he chose reclamation over comfort. Today, at 62, Johnny Depp is no longer known as the guy from Pirates or the accused abuser. He's recognized as a survivor of one of the most public trials in modern history, using his resurrected platform to create art on his own terms. While Amber continues interviews about feeling silenced, Johnny is using his voice to simply create again. While she positions herself as a martyr, he's building a legacy. Mind she playing King Louis XV at Cannes, directing films, performing for 60,000 fans. His story proves something beautiful and painful. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find yourself. Sometimes the end of one story is the beginning of a much better one. Johnny, at 62, conquered something difficult. He conquered his addiction demons long enough to survive 6 years of warfare and found a way to make art again, despite exile. He sold properties worth millions. He lost an estimated $650 million in career earnings between 2016 and 2020. But Johnny's story at 62 shows us that your worst chapter doesn't have to be your final chapter. He could have stayed bitter. He could have spent years attacking Amber. Instead, he chose to transform pain into a second act that honors who he was before Hollywood. Just a Kentucky kid with a guitar who wanted to make art that meant something. His return to European cinema isn't just survival. It's proof he's found something more valuable than being the biggest movie star or winning every case or getting revenge. He's found his own voice again, his own mission, his own power to choose work that matters. In the end, Johnny at 62 didn't just survive, he used it as a launching pad to become exactly who he was always meant to be. And that makes him not just a survivor, but an inspiration for anyone who has lost themselves and had to fight to find their way back. What do you think about Johnny Depp's incredible journey from Hollywood exile back to artistic freedom on his own terms at 62 years old? How do you think his story will inspire people who feel defined by their worst mistakes and need to believe comeback is possible even in your 60s? If you found this deep dive valuable, I must insist you watch our exclusive playlist on celebrity divorces that destroyed careers, because understanding how public narratives shape legacy is crucial if you want to see through the headlines to the human truth. You'll find that playlist in the end screen now. And if you're someone who appreciates untold stories that reveal the psychological truth behind the scandals, hit that subscribe button. But only if you're ready to see your favorite celebrities not as heroes or villains, but as complex humans, making devastating mistakes and fighting for redemption. I'll see you in the next one.